After the boom nozzle setup, we'll go into the pressure setup on the envelope. First thing we'll do is, again, come over to the wrench. We'll select the field labeled pressure. The first thing that we'll do is do the pump setup. You have a PWM 12-volt pump. A servo minimum, the default value for that is 23%. The default value for your servo maximum should be 78%. You have a manual mode servo speed. You can leave that at 50%. Pump still shut down 1 psi. This means that if the envelope detects that the boom pressure is lower than 1 psi, it's going to go on and shut down your pump. Pump pulses per revolution and pump max speed. If you have a speedometer on your pump, we can monitor that, and we can set a max revolution on a pump. That is not active on most configurations, so you just leave that to 6 and 0. Your RX method, leave that set at average. Your min pressure, max pressure, and max flow defaults to 15, 100, and 0. Those settings are perfectly fine. If you want to customize those fields, that is fine as well. Pump power up status is off. You can choose last. We don't recommend using that setting, so leave your pump power up status to off. Your recirculation, if your Apache sprayer is equipped with a boom recirculation system, you have a few different options to run. You can run your boom recirculation in manual mode. This means when you turn on recirc, it turns on and stays on until you turn it off. So manual mode is simple on-off control. You can put your boom recirculation in auto mode. In auto mode, when you can turn your boom recirculation on, and then anytime you start spraying, it turns the boom recirc off automatically. And then when you stop spraying or the whole boom turns off, it automatically begins recirculation again. We recommend auto delay 30 seconds if you have a recirculation system. And what this does is, when the boom turns off and stops flowing, it waits for 30 seconds before it turns the recirculation system back on. And the reason that we typically use this auto delay 30 seconds is so that it's not trying to recirc every time you come in and out of a headland. It only does it whenever you stop for longer periods of time than turning on the end rows. The recirculation valve on an Apache sprayer is normally closed, and you have to enable the cycle ball valves on an Apache sprayer. This way it turns the ball valves on one by one down the line in order to achieve the recirculation, since ball valves are still installed on that recirculating machine. The next part of the pressure setup is the sensor setup. In the sensor setup, you're going to have a 1 volt minimum to 5 volt maximum voltage on your pressure sensor, and you're going to have a minimum measurable pressure of 0 psi and a maximum of 250. And if you have a Sparge pressure sensor installed, it's going to be the exact same thing. Your sensor 2 minimum will be 1, sensor 2 maximum 5. Minimum pressure is 0, and we scroll down and we can see that we would need to change that sensor 2 maximum to 250 pounds. That completes our pressure sensor setup. The next thing that we'll come into is control tuning. Typically the default values are perfectly fine in here. That's a system gain of 1, P gain of 5, integral gain of 1, differential gain of 1, a dead band of 1 psi, no run hold delay, and we want to make sure that rate sync is disabled. If your pressure control on your pump is sluggish, you can increase this system gain to make it more responsive. If the pressure control on your pump is overreactive, you can decrease this system gain in order to slow down the pump control. So after doing those 3 setups, we're now finished with our pressure control setup.